it's going back and forth like this. So, all right, everybody, happy Friday. I'm just going to make sure that the live stream is working here. I'm actually bring Adam Weinzetl up here so he can be on camera too. I tell you what, we're going.
Oh, I don't know if it's just me now.
There we go.
So you just brought me on here to leave me.
Good luck today. All right, everybody. I'm just making sure the live feed is working. Again, we're on the 4th iteration of HD cameras, Rode microphones, things like this. And I'm just making sure that everything's going through to Facebook right now. So I'm just checking the Facebook feed quick to make sure we're actually broadcasting on the internet and not just me and Adam talking to ourselves, which wouldn't be the worst thing ever. But like Adam said, we want to add a little bit of value. These questions that we're going to be talking about today, everybody's going to find some value in. Okay, so I see the live feed up. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my over 2 decades of experience as a craftsman and a business owner to answer questions. And number one, thank you to the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. Big things coming with them. 2021 is going to be a big year. A year like 2020 forces us to change, and it is going to be an exciting ride with the PCA this next year. Togetherness, events, expos, chapter, council meetings, forum events are usually the biggest part of that. Not really able to do a lot of that now, and we are pivoting and we're moving and we are creating an entire year worth of ways to get together right now. And that goes without saying, the free resources and things like that. So the PCA, many people don't know about this. They have a whole bunch of free stuff like standards. Adam, one of the biggest things we worry about is what is technically a flaw in a wall? How do you know a surface is properly painted? The PCA has a free resource to tell you so you can agree to it with your clients before the job. The next thing, what do you charge for X? That's like the number one painter question ever. The PCA has a pricing guide. It's just there. So listen, all the questions that you have about your painting business, you can find through the PCA. And if the free resources, the paid resources aren't solving it for you, the smartest minds in the industry are there. And that's how I started doing a lot of the things that I've been doing. So, all right, we're going to jump right into this here. There's a link in here to join the PCA, or just go if you're interested in it. Otherwise, look for big things in 2021. Adam Weinzetl, one of my favorite Minnesota painters. Awesome guy.
Well, real quick, I'll just chime in about the PCA. As a relatively new business owner, huge thanks and a huge, testimonial to what the PCA can do. I got the pricing guides. I've connected with a dozen or 2 dozen, just people all over the country, and have contacts now that we never would have had before without the PCA. So at first I was like, we didn't have any money starting out. And I said, this is going to be worth it. Got in there and immediately, huge impact. We have the industry standards in our contract. Just a ton of really amazing things there. So happy to wear the PCA badge on our website and elsewhere. So big thanks to you guys for all that you do there.
Well, absolutely. And, one of the interesting things is, Adam, I've been in this industry for 28 years, owned my own business for 13. It's only been in the last 4 or 5 years that I've started adopting the standards, using those price guide, things like that. What year of business are you in right now?
We just completed technically our first full year. So we're about 1.5 years in.
So you have a decade head start on me. You are so much more advanced than I was. I was such a regressive thinker. I'm always impressed that you found this stuff, you used it, and you're sort of a networker. Like, you're not afraid to reach out to people, learn from other people, absorb that, and bring it back. And that's super impressive from getting to know you over the last year or so.
Well, and I don't know how other trades work, and we're relatively young, so we don't necessarily have the experience working in all these different areas, but we've just been amazed at the painters around the country. Amazed, where franchisees or guys who have been doing this for 70 years, guys who've been doing this for 2 years. All across the board, everybody with different models, all the different coaches available. It's really just a special community of people, and especially in Minnesota too. We're blessed to be here with you guys, and for the culture that we're building up here. So, special place to be in the Wild West of
it is
contracting.
And we're obviously biased, but Minnesota really is sort of a special place. We have for all that's going on in the world, we have a fairly booming economy. I mean, let us harken back to Q1 of this year. Feels like another year, another decade, another world apart. Strongest economy that you and I have probably ever lived through. Everything was just booming. You could do many, many things with your business that you couldn't in other economic times. And we have Silicon Valley of paint sprayers. We have Titan, we have Wagner, we have Graco, world headquarters, all right here. We have super strong showings from, we have good placement from Hirschfield's, a fourth generation family paint manufacturing retailer. We have a strong presence of Sherwin and a whole bunch of this is good, man. This is a good place to be, even given all the externalities that we're given.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to get into this. So Adam, what I love about Adam is that he has a spreadsheet and he preps for these things just like I do. And I said, hey, what do you want to talk about? And he sent me a spreadsheet with questions, and I love this. So we are going to let Adam sort of lead the conversation. I'm going to jump in and query him about his own business. But quick, before we do that, 30-second rundown. Your business, what does it look like? Obviously, we're in the genesis of your business. Give us the quick rundown. What do we need to know about Adam?
Yeah. So the first thing I think is, which kind of peppers our entire, probably peppers our conversation and most of the perspective that we're going with. So I'm going to use we a lot, and that's we is me and my wife Alex, who's amazing and intimately involved in everything that we do. We treat it as a family operation. So, she's right, always right there next to me. I'm handling most of the day-to-day work, so she really helps just keep me accountable and make sure that I'm not screwing everything up. She does a good job of it. So. And the other thing also, for us, just positioning, we're a Christian company and we're very upfront about that. And it's part of our value system that we talk about in our estimates, and it's on our website. It's, in all of our promotional materials. So that's something that we hold ourselves to. And just a little bit of a background there of that. As far as where our business is, started in May of 2019. Didn't have painting. I had about 2 weeks of painting experience and said, I'm not very good at this. I should hire people who are good at it. And it's been beautiful. I've had some sales experience, so got started there, figured things out. 2019, our motto was it could have been worse, and we made it to 2020, and we had a great year. We did about a $500,000 in revenue this past year, so that was our goal, and we hit it, which is great. And so now we're positioned to start hiring production manager, sales manager. We use primarily subcontractors, exclusively subcontractors for our painting. So going into a new era in our business, and wanted to ask Nick here, especially the general theme around what I would like to ask is, how do we evolve and take this thing from, one guy trying to figure things out and, putting it all together and turn it into a corporation, more formal business with structures and systems and executing on that rather than just kind of running around trying to make it up as you go. So.
Yeah, and obviously, I can only offer one data point, but I feel that the data point that I can offer is fairly valid for most painting companies, because I like to do as scientific of a test process as I can, and I like to test lots of things. So I did the typical thing where when you want to grow a business, you take your best painter and you make him a production manager, and it didn't work all that well. And that's where I started learning about personality types. And then we started personality testing all our people. And we tried it a few more times. We did, lots of different experiments. And we finally realized, this type of person seems to do way better than other types of person in this role. So what we then did was basically look for people who want to be part of a team, who are process oriented, and also share in our core values. And, obviously there's some interplay. Humans are squishy and weird, and there's always going to be variables you can't control for. But generally speaking, you can, by personality testing, creating a job description that plays to that personality type, and then creating deliverables in that play to that personality type. You can set it up where it's a satisfying job for the person with the right personality.
Which personality types do you use? We
use DISC. DISC profile. Yep. That seems, and again, through other leadership groups and economic gardening, I've been introduced to other ones and they seem to be valid. The problem is somebody got me started with DISC about 6 years ago. And I have this there's this sunk cost fallacy that I'm kind of working with now, which is I'm sure a lot of the other ones work too, but this is what I'm using and I sort of understand it and I'm afraid to restart now. So
well, if it's been working, then
yeah, it's been really good. So in taking this thing and professionalizing it, it's like, we have to get people in and the right people. And that's where the conversation usually starts. What I like to do is back it up 3 steps and say, you got to have like the foundation of the house, the roots of the tree and everything in place before you do that. This last year, the biggest epiphany I had about the painting industry is that the first thing people do when they want to grow a business is the knee-jerk reaction of grow a business, just get more people. And they're bringing people into an unprofessionalized thing. It's this half-baked operation where you're not ready to work with the world of employees. And for me, there's like I call them the entrance fee things, which is you got to have an employee manual, which is basically 90% employment law, 10% stuff specific to your business. You got to have airtight job descriptions. You got to have an airtight pay scale, and you got to have airtight deliverables within that too. So the best ways, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, Adam, but for the greater world out there, humans operate best when there's 2 columns. I give you this, you give me this. And if this seems like a good trade, then we can hold each other accountable to it. How most painting businesses are run are, I'm going to give you a paycheck in 40 hours a week, and you're going to make me a lot of money. And the things that we can, as business owners, our deliverables very clear. It's a paycheck. It's this amount of money per hour. You track your hours. The employee's very interested in that rate and how many hours. And if that check shows up 12 hours later than it normally does, you will hear about it. The problem is most of us don't have clear deliverables for our employees. They don't know if they're winning or not. And it's not the employee's fault. It's our fault. Mm-hmm. I got raised in the trade where it's do it better, do it faster. And that was screamed at me for 2 decades. And I felt like I was doing better and faster. There was no way to tell if I was winning. So that was very frustrating. So even with production managers and salespeople, the maze, the game, the deliverable all have to be set in a way where they know it's a light switch. You either win or you don't win.
How do you go about determining those deliverables for your team? Because there's a million things that we can measure and that we can use as a success metric. Is that based on, is it individualized to the person or is it individualized to what we need to work on as a business?
I did mine. I think of like kind of 4 Lego pieces in the company, which are painters, production manager, sales, and then kind of owner, give or take. And I want those things to each play to a different personality type. It seems to be that each of those, there's a sort of personality type that will win a little easier or better or faster in each of those. And what I wanted to do, instead of saying, Bill, you're a production manager, what do you like in life? And then make an incentive plan. I played the incentives more towards the personality type because that's deep inside of us. Like if you were to make an incentive plan for me or you, it would probably be, we'd be incentivized on creating new ideas, forming new businesses, things like that. That's very satisfying to us. That may not be satisfying to other people. People with our personality types will usually be incentivized by that. So what I like to do is, again, when you say, how do you incentivize it? There's obviously, people just think about the pay rate. Well, again, 2 steps back, what change do you want to affect in your business? And for the production managers, for me, it's 2 things. We want to drive good growth profit and we want to drive down callbacks. And so basically they're incentivized on those 2 things. Again, you know this thing too. If you want to affect a change, you got to measure something. And that's what we measure. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I was really struck last time we talked about the callback. And I think you said, is it 5% is the goal, 5% or less?
Yes, and I got some awesome data with that too. And by the way, I just picked 5% out. It just seemed like one of those like, I don't know, try to get 5% or less callbacks.
Yeah. Well, and that's a part that as we're looking for next year and looking to scale, because we're hoping to get over 1 million is the goal, and then also start to implement a commercial arm in our business too, and start kind of dabbling in that sort of with the sort of trying to systematize the residential side, get some people in place to be able to do that, and then with my extra time, move over to the commercial edge, and start building that up slowly, start to just learn that. And Eric Barstow over at Painting Business Pro has a great program he just came out with, partnered with a lot of different guys, put that together for a commercial course. And so we got that, and been really, really valuable so far. So check that out if anybody's interested. First thing I've heard of like that. I'd never heard of anything that was commercial oriented like that. But as we're looking towards it, I say, one of the things that, and I think our painters understand this too, because all of our subcontractors, they're business owners as well. Whether they fully, interpret themselves that way or not is another story. But somebody was mentioning, they just said, callbacks they just kill the hours. It kills your margins, because you're never expecting that time, and then it's screwing up your other production times. Then communication is off, and then your schedule's off. And when one thing gets off, everything gets off. That was kind of our experience, especially trying to juggle all things at once. And it's a bigger problem because we're paying a flat rate to our subs, so it's a bigger problem for them.
Huge.
And so the theory was, well, if we can help them understand how big of an issue this is, then hopefully help them to identify that as something that they need to work on in their business and start measuring it on their end. And so I'm just curious what things you found effective to help that, and clearly upfront systems, but other things that have helped your callback ratio and keeping track of that, keeping that down.
Yeah, and hats off to my world-class production team, Justin and Holly. Between quarter 2 and quarter 3, they reduced callbacks 66% in one quarter. And it was basically because, again, we measured it, we were intentional about it, we made a plan, and they followed through. And so what we like to talk about in my leadership team is, there's a problem, let's come up with a solution. That's what most people think leadership teams do. And what I urge them to do is, let's go 3 ways up and say, how can we build a maze or a system that the problem doesn't even occur in the first place? So when we thought about callbacks, it's like, okay, obviously your first reaction is, if there's a fire, let's just address it. So the first sort of like triage that we do is like, if there's any question, a callback about a job, just attack it with ferocity, like almost in a too aggressive way with the client. Like, I'm heading over to your house right now, don't move, one of those things. Now, once we can sort of get them solved like that, now the biggest thing that we found was making sure that people are held accountable to our standard operating procedures. And that was the biggest thing, because, we have the checklist, and when things don't go right on jobs, it's because of that. So it's a big job. We found a direct correlation between the amount of time we hold the humans in this company accountable to the things we want them to do to success. But it is exhausting at a point. I mean, honestly, you just run out of time in the day. If you got 25 employees, calling each person or going to every job site and verifying that they did all these 6 steps and everything during the day, I mean, you'd have no time. So it's kind of, we know what it takes to win, but you got to be selective about it. The other biggest thing that we did to drive gross profit and drive down callbacks was one crew, never split them up, one van, same gear, one job site, start to finish. So probably not a problem with subcontracting, but a lot of the times what would happen is, because half of our company is really experienced master crafts people, half of the company is somewhere between apprentice and crafts person. If a senior person would call in sick or be gone on vacation, we'd have to bump in another crew just to make sure that other apprentice felt supported on that site. Mass chaos. I mean, I say mass chaos. It's not a big deal. It's not efficient to just take somebody who's never been on a job site, drop them on for 2 days, and then pop them back out. So that was one of the biggest things, the continuity and the stability that drove it as well. The third thing was the easiest way to prevent the callbacks is our leadership team breaking themselves to show up on site and verify that everything is done correctly. And again, there's a point where you run out of hours in the day to do all this stuff. So in those 3 ways, I feel my 2 production managers really did a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting, because it's how do you prioritize which jobs you go and see? Is it the type of job, type of customer, type of person on the job?
Yep.
I mean, is that you just kind of have to figure that out as you go, or do as many as you can?
Yeah, we have this discussion twice a day, because in the month of December, again, I know that the low-hanging fruit in my company is like what we talked before, which is getting production up and getting our people more comfortable with SOPs and the craft. The way to do that is for me to go on site and train them physically by myself on jobs. So we have our new facility. We were going to bring in 6 to 10 people at a time. I was going to train them. COVID now prevents that. So I'm actually going to their job sites 3 days a week, spending about 2 to 3 hours with each crew, sometimes 2 crews a day doing that. And again, it's one of those things. We talk twice a day. I say, Justin and Holly, where do you want me today? And they say, well, this project is a difficult project, but we got experienced people on it. This is an easy project, but we have less experienced people. So then you start weighing the options in your head and doing that sort of thing. So, but I tend to go to the least experienced crews or the crews that haven't done a whole bunch of a certain kind of work for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We had a couple of people this year that we tried as subs, and everybody's really good at interviewing, and and that was part of my problem, is learning how to source more effectively, and how do we really be more selective for the guys we bring along. But sometimes you need a job done, and we just wanted to bring the guy on. So we get some guys there, and really nice guys. We had one set of guys who they did a couple of projects for us, and we just had continual issues. And I just said, look, guys, I'm sorry. I wish I could train you, but I can't. I don't have the expertise that you have to be able to teach you how to paint. I can help you with other things, and I can provide you with work, but can't do that. So that's one thing that the accountability aspect when I was trying to do sales and production management and customer relations and dealing with issues was like, and we need and I'm not, first of all, that's not my strength to begin with. So that was it was challenging to do that. And that's where our first hire was kind of like, we're like, we gotta get somebody in here to do production who likes that and is good at it, and frankly has the time to be able to go check on these guys, because we don't have 25 people running around necessarily, but it does grow. So, and then I've heard a lot of people too talk about, we can't tell them how to do their job because they're subcontractors, but we can write the contract in such a way that says, here's how we do things. Here's how you're agreeing to do things.
The deliverable.
Right, exactly. Making it clear. And that's something that we failed on. And to your point, it's like, we can't ever get mad if a sub doesn't perform, because that's on us for not setting expectations right with either them or the client. So, and then do you keep, are all your crews 2-person, or does it depend on the project, or?
Oh my God, Adam Weinzetl, I have thoughts. All right, so if you left it up to me, everybody would be a 1-person crew. Like if you want to instantly drive down callbacks and drive up gross profit, you would have 1-person crews, because people are just inherently more accountable when there's nobody else to say, yeah, but I was paired with X. And people are just, when people own something solely, they tend to treat it a little bit differently. Now, harken back to 2019 when we did a little something called the Reformation in my company, where basically everybody's job was on the line. I split them into 1-person crews and I tracked their daily production rate. The added benefit to the company did not quite pay off in terms of the added stress added to the people. The problem is with most craftspeople, they constantly veer in and out of, I don't like training, but I don't like working alone. One of those sort of things. So you kind of have this interplay of, you hope you can find 2 personalities that mesh really well. And this is a thing that we talk about. Like, we probably spend an hour or 2 every time the leadership team gets together, which is, how do we make everybody happy? And we just try to look at the Lego pieces. What if these 2 come together? What if this one's alone? What if we put this one on a drywall crew? What if we put this with our master carpenter? What if we, and it's just all those things. And all you're trying to do is just make people happy,
Right. So it just kind of fluctuates, and, just trying to put it all together.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where we have if you left it up to all my painters, they would be 1 crew. If you left it up to me, there would be 25 crews. Yeah. So somewhere in the middle we must meet, Adam.
Well, and it's interesting too, because we're working with some of our guys. One in particular, who he's a phenomenal painter, and he's really great, understands the business. It's just kind of he doesn't necessarily know how to grow his crews, and so we're sort of saying the theory here again is try to can we double down on him as one subcontractor who has 3-4 crews, And I know a lot of people have tried that, and doesn't always work so well. To your point, personality types, but I think he has it, and he has the he's introspective enough to want to learn. And so as I'm talking to him and saying, okay, because he says, yeah, let's get 6 guys and then we'll have 3 crews. And I'm like, well, maybe you want a crew of 4 and a crew, or I don't know, or maybe you want 8 guys, 2 crews of 4, or is it better to have 4 crews of 2? And it gets really messy there. So, and it depends on the experience level, because he has a lot of journeyman painters that he's been working with for 10 years that he knows well and trusts, and he's going to bring on. Nice. So it's one of those where, yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious what other people would say too, if there's a sweet spot.
Yeah, and I would say the sweet spot, if somebody just called up and said, hey, listen, you don't know me, you don't know my painters, how many people on a crew? I would just say always 2. Just always 2. I mean, unless you have somebody who's just, it just functions better alone. Like I've come across examples in my company too, where no matter what Lego piece you put with a certain person, everything goes to hell when you put the Lego pieces together. When you take those Lego pieces apart, magic. And you're just like, it's just some weird black magic, some chemistry, some alchemy that I don't understand. And it's like, we've tried everything. We've tried different jobs. We've tried inside, outside, pairing you up, different types of work, restructuring things. And you know what? Sometimes people just do their thing and you have to react to it the best you can. So we do have a couple 1-person crews for that reason. It's just like they function better. They're a little happier. We get better results, and it just is what it is,
Mm-hmm. And then, we talked about this a little bit earlier off camera, but in talking about the, theory of constraints and saying, all right, we've got it's a pretty simple business. It's pretty straightforward. Sales, marketing, sales, production, customer relationships, and administrative is in there, of course, but really marketing, sales, production. And I was struck by you saying marketing at this point in the market, and probably for the foreseeable future, even during COVID, is still marketing dollars produces leads. You can put them a whole bunch of different places. There's a million places to put them. But marketing dollars produces leads. So that constraint is only as much money as you're willing and able to put into it. Sales constraint, it's a need-based industry. So you only have, that's kind of as long as you're somewhat professional and you have, some things together, you're going to close jobs. Just by showing up, you'll close jobs. I mean, there are plenty of people who aren't professional and don't know what they're doing and close jobs. I close jobs without knowing anything about painting, so anybody can do it. And so then the real constraint is production, and it's a man hours thing. And we talked about callbacks as, one way to solve that constraint, right? But as far as, is that the most effective way you found to scale your production, or is it the training up front, or is it the SOPs, or just having the right people and those Lego pieces together?
Yeah. So if I had to, we always play with the leadership team. We always play the wave the magic wand game, where, okay, you wave the magic wand, get rid of one thing or change one thing to solve all the problems in the business, or to solve this one thing. And it's a way of driving down. And for me, it would be world-class human beings who share my core values coming into the company. That is the only constraint that I have. I can't find enough world-class human beings to do any of it. Sales, production, or painting, and I know they're out there. I'm just not good enough to get them all. So when we look at the senior half of my company, legitimately tried and true world-class human beings. It's not like, well, they're good painters, but they have this. No. They are just like, they're people I like hanging around. They're people that hang around my family. These are legitimately like fine examples of human beings that just happen to care about their job and our clients. That's the constraint right there. And like this, you pull the handle on the marketing, you're only limited by your money. Sales, you can find people. It's not hard to sell. There is a need out there. The economic principles that we know right now are that there's not enough trustworthy, consistent tradespeople in any of the trades to fulfill all the work that needs to be done. And honestly, if you show up and you're trustworthy, you don't even know how to paint. If you can just deliver them a product on a trustworthy way, you win in this economy doing what we're doing right now. So that is the constraint. So I have in the past, and this is something where, man, I got to be careful about some of this stuff, because there is this last year, one of the other epiphanies I've had is that there's not enough good painters out there. So every single person's knee-jerk reaction is training videos, manuals, SOPs, this and that. None of it means anything if you don't have the good person to give that manual to, and you aren't good enough to hold that person accountable to it. Right. So that's the problem. And I have completely refocused a lot of my stuff from, obviously we're going to do world-class training, but in 2021, we are going to become a recruiting firm where we are just going to go look for we have 10, 12 examples. And not that our apprentices aren't good people, but when you look at the top 10 to 12 people in my company, the template for the future of the trades. And that's basically now we have enough data points saying, we're going to put up a super high fence around this company. If you're not one of them, you're not in. But we're going to go searching for the ones who can get in.
Well, and then on that point too, you got to keep them. And so I'm curious with your lead craftsmen. I mean, how do you provide more opportunities to them as they're going? How do you make sure they stay fulfilled? And one thing that I haven't explored this very much, but an employee stock option plan or something like that, becoming an employee-owned business is something that I'm kind of interested in exploring, especially in the trades, because I don't know of any trades business that I know of that's done that, especially with their craftsmen.
Well, the easiest way to attack retention is to give them a better opportunity than they can find anywhere else. So number one, pay. If you are, and this is not a judgment call by me, good or bad. This is just the reality. If you are a single person painting company and you hire 2 people, there really is no opportunity for the 2 people you hire minus a little bit more money per hour. They're never going to be a production manager. Between an owner, production manager, and one painter, they're never going to be a salesperson unless that owner grows that company and provides more opportunity for leadership roles and things like that. There's really not a lot of opportunity there, and that's why there's a lot of attrition. The trades as a whole are absolutely horrible with, there's no good people out there. Well, you're working alone, you find somebody, you pay them a meager wage, and then you basically say, I just want to grind you to a pulp, use you up. And, you're never going to own this company. This is my company. And that young person standing around like, well, this doesn't seem like a great opportunity for me because it's only me and Jim. And I don't know, he said I'm never going to own the company. So, but yeah, the thing that I've learned over the years too, is that the more successful your business is, the more financial opportunities you can offer your painters. So right now, when I talk to painters, and this is, again, economic reality, this is just me regurgitating data. I get to talk to painters all across the country, and we go deep into their financials. Legitimately, the top 8 to 10 people in my company who have never painted before in their life, never owned a business, make more than most paint business owners in the United States right now. And it's not because I pay them an ungodly wage. I pay them above market average for what they do. It's just that's the economic reality. If you run a successful enough business, keep your eye on gross profit and net profit and have enough money to recruit good people, you can just give people opportunities that aren't available out there. This year, Adam, we actually passed the threshold of what I would call legitimate business. We now have health insurance. We now have retirement. We have paid time off. We have a pay scale that I've refined to a point where I'm comfortable with. And now, legitimately, we can go out there and say, we pay sometimes 10 to 40% more than most other companies. We have health insurance. We have paid time off. We have retirement. We have a full-scale finishing facility. And we have a 4-day work week. That's something that you can't, that's real opportunity, That's how we do it.
Oh, and I can't promise that for our guys. So it's so things to aspire to. And it's I read Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game, which is really good. That's one to check out. I think it's pretty recent too. It was last year or something he published it, but he had a little video on one of the sections where he met a barista in Vegas who was working at a hotel, and he was just phenomenal and loved his job. And he asked him, he said, "Oh, I love my job, and here's why, and here's why." And then he said, "Do you work anywhere else?" He says, "Yeah, I'm also a barista at this hotel, and management's always on me, and I just kind of try to stay quiet and out of the way." And his reflection on that was, he's like, it's the job of the business owner to provide a work culture in which people can perform at their natural best. And if you have that, then you get people like Noah. And if you don't have that, then you get people like Noah. And he says, you get the exact same people either way. their level of accomplishment and achievement is directed based on the opportunity and the comfort that you've provided them so that they can perform at their natural best. I just thought was one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard. It was shocking too, but it was just kind of, that's, I feel like refined, well, has impacted my thinking around recruiting, especially because we haven't done it. So that's peppered throughout our entire process of how do you do that. And so do you do that based on writing up the job ads, the job descriptions? Is it all networking based with contacts to find your people? Or
we had a deep discussion about this with the leadership team, because we want to protect the people that we have in our company by not bringing in a bunch of people that we can't trust. So we're trying to figure out a way to tighten that maze and have a selective, catch net for people. And it seems to be that what's the most successful is going to where different people are and putting different ads out there. So I think the best success I've ever had in recruiting just decent human beings is going to places where millennials are, which is a lot of it is Indeed, ZipRecruiter, sometimes Facebook Jobs, Instagram, and then just putting something different, not putting on those lift 50 pounds, must have 3 years of experience, that sort of thing. It's more of just like, I really love my job, and most people don't. And if you'd really like to find out what really loving your job is, you can come practice this craft with me. I'm recognized as an industry leader in this stuff. All I want to do is teach you and have this go forward. You make the cut, your family, that sort of thing. And that speaks to a different kind of person. It'll also drag in some people just looking for a job. That's fine too. Some of those turn out well. Some of those are dumpster fires. But either way, you have to try something different, because the old way of putting an ad on Craigslist of, 12 to 15 bucks an hour to start, 3 years experience, must have a van, tools, and it's just different than our industry already has. So just try. I wish people are the worst. So people are just the thing that as good a recruiter as I think I am, I cannot control for what we call MPC, mass personal chaos. There are things, somebody can have a great personality test. They can interview really well. Their social media is just filled with family pictures and things like that. Yet when you bring them into the company, they can't function because there's mass personal chaos. And that's not something you can ask about. It's not something that my detector can detect. And it's just a way where they'll just not show up for work as much as they should. They'll just not follow a certain amount of things. Their phone's not charged. They're leaving for lunch when they shouldn't. It's just all the little things that little bit of mass personal chaos creates. I've not found a way to control for that. But in 2021, I'm going to plumb the depths of that and see if I can't find some indicator to look at for MPC.
Well, and that's challenging as a business owner too, because it's hard not to get emotionally wrapped up in our people. And we're not employment agreementing with our subs, but we want these guys to do well, and I want their businesses to grow and to And I'm like, guys, you don't see, if you just do these little things, and how it'd be so different for you. Just slow down a little bit and take a little bit more attention to detail, and you'll get it. But I don't know. So it's hard to not get emotionally wrapped up in it.
Well, what's interesting is that nice compliment from Mr. Paris there, coming from him, high praise.
Mr. Paris is a smart dude, so.
So we've heard, right? So, God, yeah, the people are, everything for me has just been refocused towards people. SOPs are SOPs. Once you get a job description down, that's fine. But 2021 is the year of just interacting with humans to try to bring the most out of them. And that's the hardest thing, man. It's like, just like you were saying too, the constraints. We're only limited in our market doing the things we're doing by our ability to attract other Adams and Nicks. And it's not figuring out what primer on cabinets. I wish that was the only problem we had. In one morning, you and I could get into one of our shops and knock that out, and we'd have that solved forever. The human stuff, you just never solve forever, man. Every time you think you got a good handle on it, it's gone, and you got to reconfigure. So,
yeah, that is, it is. And, because, so we're looking at scale, and I said this earlier, but I look at it and I say, well, why can't we just scale to 5 million next year? We theoretically could. We should, especially where, again, we don't have the training for the craftsmen. So we just go hire guys, and there are guys out there. We can go find them. And I think we're pretty good to work for too. We pay pretty well. So and we take care of our guys. Things go wrong on the job, and we do everything we can to bear the brunt of it. So because that's the way you got to do business at this point. You just take care of people, and we do care about them. But it's one of those where I have a hard time forgetting that it's not just a numbers game. This is not an Excel program, even though I try to make it one. It's
interesting. I love this thought experiment more than else because it's a little bit of first principle reasoning. It's a little bit of thought experimenty stuff, which is why can't you? Why can't you just do $5 million this winter or this summer? And I have a feeling, because let's assume that the economy's good and there's a demand out there. And I think we can all agree without a shadow of a doubt, there's a huge demand for this. I think there's a huge unmet need. I think you and I can both agree that we know just enough about marketing to know that here's the ROI on something. If we have a budget of this, we can generally rely on this many leads, this many jobs, this many completed projects, things like that. So if getting the jobs and the demand is not a problem, we're only held back by the mass chaos that happens because of every one of our clients is a variable. Every one of our employees or subs is a variable. Then you have the weather, then you have the house. And I think those variables, everyone is different. Now, if the easiest way to go, and I would love your thoughts on this too, the easiest way to go from 500K to 5 million would be to get with Lennar Homes and do all of their homes because there's only 4 types and you can just repeat them one after another. The limiting constraint on that for me is the margin is dirt on those things. So the problem you'd do $5 million worth of work and you'd probably walk away with 15 grand in your pocket at the end of the year. So again, then you say, well, okay, the little higher margin work is the private client work. Then you bring the variables back in, So I honestly think if Paris knows this better, because he probably knows the ratios of production managers to that. In my company with craftspeople and apprentices who are full employees, we like to go 1 production manager for 10 of our people like that. So give or take, 3 large crews, 5 small crews, give or take. That's about the max that somebody can handle. And that's enough to have super tight customer service and put out fires. So theoretically, if your painters do what they should, 100 to 110,000 a year, 50 painters. So I don't know, 5 production managers, 6 production managers, give or take. Theoretically, if they knew what they were doing and they could control 10 humans under them a piece.
Yeah. Well, and for us, that's 3 subs, which if we have 3 jobs going on, I can handle that and sell at the same time. When we had 8, it was too much, and it is like, oh man, this is crazy. Or if one doesn't go right.
You bring up something I've never thought about the sub model before, which is the sub replication, which is you have 1 subcontractor, but he may have 3 crews.
Right.
I've always thought of a subcontractor is a crew, but really that could be that. So really, if you had 3 point people, technically you could just have a liaison for each one to make sure the jobs are good. And between him, if you can move some of the production manager roles and the quality control onto the actual subcontractor, that might be the smoothest way to scale that fast. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think so. And I've talked to a couple of people about this, and it hasn't gone so well in practice. It's a good theory, but you have to have the right person, and they have to understand the business, and they have to train their people the way you train them. And it goes back to the E-myth, right? Suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure, where a technician thinks that, okay, I know the trade, I can become a trade owner. And it's not that simple. And so I'm trying to prime our guy right now we're talking about this because he's ready to leave the field. And I think he has all the qualities. And I said, look, you need to recognize and understand that your job is going to be 100% different next year. You're not going to be doing the same job, and you need to be ready for that. And we're trying to work on some of these concepts like extreme ownership. And okay, if somebody doesn't show up, what do you do? And guess what? That's on you, and you got to figure it out. And the best way to figure it out is not for you to go paint necessarily, because that doesn't necessarily help you as a business owner. So it's those kind of concepts that make that really difficult, because like you said, if we could go find a bunch of Adams and Nicks, but if you asked me to come work for you, I'd say no. I like working for me. So it's
so here we are at an impasse.
right. But the nice thing about this model and what I'm trying to present to our guys is to say, look, marketing, sales, production. If I do marketing and sales, then you have a business that has one thing. It's production. And you've got the variables in there still of client and painters and weather and all that jazz. But if you had a business where you didn't have to sell a thing because I'm just going to pepper you with work as long as you keep doing a good job, and you can go work for other people too if you want. But I mean, how many contacts they could do $500,000, we could have one guy managing a couple of crews and efficiently should be able to produce $500,000 in revenue for us, which is a pretty good revenue for them. And so, say again?
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. And so that's where trying to help them understand, okay, if you really want to run a business, that's one thing. If you want to run a paint crew, that's another. So you have to find the right person who understands that. And not everybody is coachable enough either, which is hard because I can't tell them how to paint, but I can tell them a couple of things about customer service and how to overreact, like you were talking about.
Well, what's interesting too is that, again, and this is the time of year where I schedule time out to kind of look back at this year, look forward to the next year. And I've been taking a lot of notes about what I've learned because, again, a motto in our company is learn or earn. If we earn on a job, good. It's a data point. Let's keep doing that. If we don't earn, we have to learn. And you're never going to learn if you don't write it down. So we have a long list of like never agains or always do this and stuff in my business. And the one that I learned this year is that some people are beavers, some people are moose, some people are trees, some people are rocks. It's just like they're only going to do certain things, and you can coach them, you can mentor them, but there's something inside them. Call it a machine, call it a fire, call it a something that makes them interested and curious and has them put more effort towards something. People have limits of this stuff. You and I both have these limits too. There are people that I look up in this industry that are so high flying, they probably look down at me and saying, that lazy jerk, if he would only do this, all these problems would be solved, So it's one of those things where there are limits to how interested people are in this stuff. You and I don't seem to have any limit to that interest. We still have lots of things to explore in this craft, but that's one of those things too. You have to realize, like, you know what? I built a business around every single person I employed. I thought, hey, they might be interested in being a partner with me someday. Some people just aren't interested in that. And that's an interesting realization as a human and a leader. So
right, because you just assume that everybody say, well, these are the things that I want. Doesn't everybody want that? And no, they don't, and that's okay.
That's okay.
And that's good because they have to. And that's, I don't come from an entrepreneurial background. And so when I found entrepreneurship, I just keep thinking, like, everybody needs to know about this. Everybody should go into business. It's a great thing. But it's not the case. And people have to continually remind me that this is not everybody should start a business. And if they did, we'd have no employees. So it wouldn't work.
Real quick, Adam, I want to go through a few questions here too, because this goes right along the lines of this. I love this next thought experiment. Alan Rashecki, if you were a solo painter, how many people would you hire to drive production? I have the work lined up, just don't want to hire too many people and have to train them and run out of work too fast. So when he says to drive production, probably meaning painting. So this is something that I'm presented. You're going to get a first crack at this one. This is something I presented all the time. It's chicken and the egg. It's, do I go find more work or do I go find more painters? Do I find more painters and then hope to get them work, or do I get the work and then get the painters? How say you, Adam Weinzetl?
Well, I think that the first thing is to be very clear on what you actually want, what you want before, because if you want to be a solo painter, be a solo painter. And if that's producing the salary and the profitability that you want, then fantastic. There's a guy in the Gathering Minnesota Painters who's just like that, comes to mind. There's several guys like that, and they just want to do their craft and they love it, and that's great. Now, if you're trying to scale like we are, since I can't paint professionally or unprofessionally, actually, I can't do it. I leave the job site with paint on me and I'm not painting, so it's really, I don't know how it happens. But for us, if we just want to scale, well, that's something different. And I have to be able to trust that, okay, well, if we get 3 crews and we're going to keep these 3 crews busy, then it doesn't, it's not about running out of work. We just got to keep getting work. And that's where it comes back to the marketing and sales constraints is we were behind on our numbers in June. And so we just cranked our marketing dollars, and we, did a ton of estimates in July and August, and we caught up. So you have to trust that the work is out there, and that's about having an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. But it has to line up with what you want as well. And then in terms of, you can probably speak more so in terms of how many people should you hire, but it depends on if you're on site, it depends if you're not, but ultimately I think it's got to depend on what you actually want. How far do you want to be booked? We talked about this too. Sorry, one more thought is where you said, if you only booked out 1 week, if you were always only 1 week booked out and you could always get to people quickly, you would get a ton of business. And we get a lot of jobs because I say, sure, we'll figure it out. And then I get on the phone and try to, figure out who can make it there next week. So not being booked out can be a good thing.
Yeah, and this is always because everybody wants to spreadsheet their success and have a sure thing before they hire an employee or go spend more money on marketing. And honestly, I couldn't have been more nervous. The first time I hired my first full-time year-round employee, like we're in Minnesota. It's cold and dank. And there's the time we're in right now between Thanksgiving and Christmas, Bermuda Triangle. Nobody wants us in their house. And I was like, oh my God, this young guy, I'm going to embarrass myself. There's not going to be enough work. You know what? Every time I hired a person, we still had the same lead time, if not more. We had an 8-week lead time. I hired a person. Magically, we still had an 8-week lead time. You had 4 people. We're still at 8 weeks. We had 15 people. We're still at 8 weeks. It's amazing how much this sort of goldfish just grows to the size of the bowl. And just like us, if you're a business owner and share any of the traits that Adam and I do, if you have 4 painters, you will break yourself to find work for those painters. And I would always bet on yourself to do that sort of thing. So, and at least this goes along the same thing that we were talking about before, which is right now you can always get jobs. So right now I would say, you know what, spend all your time finding the painters, because I would say that getting a job is way easier than getting a painter right now. So I would just spend all my time getting painters. You can get a job whenever the heck you want. Alan, for the amount of people, this is the thing that goes back to that engine and that motor inside us. I did something that I would not recommend for a lot of people. I hired 22 people and I ran 22 people by myself. That was an experiment. There was a start date and an end date. It was one summer, and it's fine. I broke myself. I got a lot of data. It was great. Don't do that. Most people will end up running, I would say, something. I've seen a lot of success with 3 crews. If you're a solopreneur and you're selling all the work, you're marketing, you're doing all the customer service, you're buying the paint, you're scheduling work, there's something about that 3 crew sort of thing, somewhere between 3 people and 6 people, where that's a super sweet living. That's what I believe to be the first kind of plateau of growing, where if you got like 3 crews that can work autonomously without bugging you, without wrecking people's houses, that's a magical sort of plateau. And I don't know that you're going to be much more profitable until you almost double that in size. And by the time you double that, you got to add in overhead of people that you're paying not to paint in order to get the painting done. So I don't know, that's just the data points I've seen. So honestly, I would say in this economy, in the trades that we're doing, I would test the limits of this, because there's going to be times in the rest of our lives where it is going to be very hard to get clients and get jobs. Now is not that time. An economy like this affords you the chance to experiment a lot. So I would experiment a lot.
And then I think too, I think that's you're talking about also the changing from being a solo painter to business owner. And that's one of the things I talked about with our subs, is to say, if you guys want crews, 2 crews is not going to increase your income. It's not, you may be doing more work, but you're not going to make any more money. It's the 3rd crew that is the one that pushes you over where this becomes really profitable. So I would echo that. I've seen that too from myself, having never been a solopreneur like that.
Well, interestingly enough, I ran because I couldn't figure out why, like, hey, I'm doing this by myself. I know my numbers because there's no other numbers to muddy them up. It's just me and my numbers. You add a person in And sometimes it moves the needle, sometimes it doesn't. You add 2 people in, 3 people in, 4 people in. Sometimes it doesn't even move the needle that much. And when you track your own numbers and do job costing and figure out how much revenue per hour you make, how much gross profit on every job, you can actually find out your replacement in numbers of painters. For me, it was somewhere between 3 and 4 painters that if I wanted to go from 8 to 10 hours of field labor a day to 0, like just owning the company and managing the company, I needed at least 4 painters to replace what we were doing before. That would put me back at even. And the big fallacy is that, well, if I step out of the field and put this one other person in, that's an even trade. It is not an even trade because nobody cares about painting like the solopreneur, and nobody's going to do as good a job and work harder and put more hours in. So that's the first sort of fallacy in that sort of thing. And that's the advice that I give people when they say, well, how many people should I hire before I step out of the field? It's like, I do at least 4. And even then it's going to be rocky. So
well, that might, and maybe we can talk about this later when we get to Leo's question, but to your, you went from managing all those people and you've got 2 production managers now, right? And so to that same point, it's not just in the painting, world. And we can get into, how much a production manager ought to be able to do. And just because you can do more doesn't mean that the person that you hire could or should do more. You shouldn't necessarily ask people to work the way that you work as the entrepreneur.
Oh, so let's answer Leo's question here. So this is another one too, where there's an algorithm for that. There's a spreadsheet for that. It's one that I share readily with painters. If you guys want it, nick@nickslavic.com. How much to pay a guy just starting out and a guy with 3 years of experience? For me, none of that stuff makes any difference. It's, what do you need to come into my company? If it's not outrageous, we're going to give you a shot. Here's the clear deliverables, and this is what you owe us. Everybody's 3 years of experience is different. What I can tell you is the simple fact that in my business model, I would like to keep labor to 40% as a percentage of revenue. So that means if a painter wants to make $40,000 a year or $20 an hour, they need to produce $100,000 of income a year. And when you break that down by day, that's not that much. It's painting the equivalent of a bedroom and a quarter or a bedroom and a half. Easier said than done, Adam Weinzetl, like you said. On paper, it all seems magical. In reality, it doesn't always work out that way. So if a painter comes to you and says, there's actually a metric that you can use. You can say, listen, I want to make $25 an hour, where you can say, all right, well, you're going to have to produce $120,000 of revenue a year. And now that is that X amount per day. And if you track your numbers, you can say, you're going to have to paint the equivalent of a bedroom and a bathroom every day this year if you want that amount. If you can, we win together. Great. So simple metric. And I don't know if you have some data. I mean, you do the submodels and stuff like that, so you kind of just run on a percentage of a job anyway. So I don't know.
Yeah, typically, and I think so I don't have much to say in terms of the hourly rate, especially. But I have found that I've been surprised. People don't know. Pay is not the only metric that people care about, and to your point too is pay time off and benefits and retirement matching, and also just an investment in the person. Mm-hmm. Do you care about them, and do they know that you care about them and that you want to bring them in to be a part of the company? Communicating a company value is as much for them as it is for us. I mean, we need people who match those values, but people want to work somewhere where they believe in the cause of the company. And painting is something where it can, depending on how you position it, you could have a very different reaction. And the trade gets somewhat of a bad rep, but man, it's beautiful to work with people, and there's almost nothing more satisfying than a house being totally transformed by paint. It's one of the easiest ways to make the biggest impact. It's unbelievable, and it humbles me just to watch it happen.
Yeah. One more question from Dave Pine, and then I want to get back to discussing what you want to discuss. So, and then Adam, certainly tell me if it's family time for you too. At some point, about this, so you let me know. Dave Pine in New Hampshire, owner of a painting company, 8 full-time employees, trying to get to 500K in sales, 350 now, up from 240. That's good growth. Finding help, and it goes on a little bit longer. It won't put the whole thing on, but it says trying to cultivate youthful, positive culture. Any advice? So again, problem solution. We want to cultivate an awesome culture in our company. So you do things to try to cultivate that. I would go 2 steps up. How do you build this thing so that the culture is almost innate in it? And it's that decent human being thing of, it's that old data entry thing that I remember from college, garbage in and garbage out. Computer coding. If you put a bunch of crap in, you're going to get crap out. So getting good stock is number one. I would spend all your time. I honestly believe that once you get to a certain point, the only job of a paint business owner or a trades business owner is just recruiting awesome humans. And after that, magically, it'll all work out. So I would say, number one, get the good people in that share your core values. I would say this, and this is the hardest thing for us to sort of follow through on, which is don't settle for anything less than like absolutely yes. I found myself, I see business owners all the time sort of do these things like, well, they have this, but there's also this. I feel that this will overcome this. And in an economic gardening group that I'm in, I am the little fish in the big pond. I'm just a lowly trades business owner. One of the people in my economic gardening group, they're all business owners and CEOs, just sold his company for $32 million this year. And I have a lot to learn from these people. And I don't know if they have anything to learn from me. But one of the things that I see as a common trait in this group of all business owners is every single time that somebody talks to them about buying a business, or every time they interview this employee, it's always going to be life-changing. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. This business is going to change everything. I'm going to triple my worth this year. I found this person. I think they're going to solve all the problems of my business. I don't have one data point to show that any of those things have ever brought anything positive for these business owners. Because we report back to each other. We say, I'm going to bring in a functional CFO to my business. It's going to solve all these problems. You're going to get all the benefits of a CFO. They're going to be part-time. They're going to be this and that. And it's a disaster. They end up firing them 6 months later. So it's one of those things where I bring that point up to say, as entrepreneurs, we are so optimistic about everything. All we do is see, yeah, so this kid just got out of jail. Maybe this is the chance he needs. Chance he needs. All right. There are places where that kid deserves a chance. My paint business isn't that good to reform a person right out of jail. I wish it would be. It's not. And so I would say the larger point of that, don't settle for anything less. It'll create mass chaos in your business. Second short thing is, if you want this youthful culture, a culture where families are involved, we have weekly company meetings with everybody in the company. And again, I say this, we don't do this anymore because it's illegal to nowadays. Company meetings with every single person in the company. We used to all sit here, 25 of us, and discuss projects. Happy hours, once a month, we go down to the local brewery. My production manager, who owns a food truck, caters it all, and we have an open tab, and everybody brings friends and family. We have our big Christmas party, which is probably going to be illegal again this year, which is the highlight of we have an award ceremony and stuff like that. We have little outings together. We have boss lunches, all of it illegal. So this is my biggest worry for this year, which is this culture thing. What makes my company special is the good people that interact together with friends and family all together. That is rendered illegal this year. So we're trying to hold this thing together until those can happen again. So Adam, sorry, that was a very long-winded way of saying this is tough.
Well, I think what I'd be curious about is, okay, how's your job size look from last year to this year? And because that's usually a low-hanging fruit too, of if you can just increase your job size by 10%, what does that do to your bottom line? And that's sales too. So at 350 increased by 2% or by 10%, then you're at 385 all of a sudden. So that's something that I'd be curious to look at too. And also, your profitability in general, because more sales doesn't equal more dollars. For the Lennar Homes example, right? You do 5 million, but you end up with 15,000 of profit. That's not necessarily what you actually want. And I'd be curious, Nick, too, so 8 full-time employees, is that the production that it should be getting? So is it a sales thing? So if 8 people should be more productive than that, then finding good help maybe isn't exactly the attention point. The attention point might be making sure that you're training your people, getting them to produce effectively. What are the bottlenecks of the production process? And maybe it is the people. Maybe you have to cut some ties, because maybe you've got 2 people in the group that aren't necessarily helping the business, and maybe your 6 people could produce 350,000 for you. And what has that done for your bottom line? Realizing a profit that's probably close to what you'd get 500 in sales with the same people. So those are the things that I would think about. But
no, and you sniff this out perfectly, because reading these numbers is exactly that. If you want to get an industry average or industry benchmark of $55 of revenue an hour, those 8 full-time painters should be making you between $800,000 and $900,000 of revenue a year. And it seems that the low-hanging fruit right now is 2 things always come to mind, which is if you have vampires in your company, get rid of the vampires. I've had 3 data points in my company where, it's that 80-20 rule in business. 20% of your people take up 80% of your time. And take up can mean a lot of things. Take up can mean ruin your life. So I have 3 data points in the history of my company where we actually got rid of 1 or 2 vampires, and the week or the 2 weeks after, we made more money and we actually produced more work. After you get rid of people, you have less people working, but you do more profitable and more work. So first, I would say, slay the vampires in your company. If there's no vampires, train the living daylights out of them. Because right now it seems like they should be making probably 35% more revenue than they are right now. So I would say maximize what you have. I mean, that's a huge company. You're approaching the business size where only about 10 to 12% of all painting businesses in the United States are. So don't feel this urge to grow. I would do what Adam says. Get a 15 to 20% profit margin, then add some stuff on top of that.
And don't be afraid too to look at your pricing and to price accordingly, because if you're providing professional service, we can't feel bad about that, because profit is the tool by which we improve our serving to the market. Without profit, we're not a business. And so, I had to learn that, especially at the beginning of trying to, and I kind of had the complex of like, oh, I'm not doing the physical work. Am I a paper contractor? And what does that mean about me? And so then eventually realize after, especially we had some issues that we had to deal with, and say, all right, yeah, no, I'm providing real value here. And having to realize that, it's, I don't know what point I was trying to make there, but
But no, it's a really good thing to understand that it is truly like I have enough data points, and where you marry the feelings with the data to say, honestly, we're training and trying to grow a apprenticeship craftsman company. So half the company is in some sort of training and half the company is operating at a high level. Right now, Adam, if you were a shareholder in my company and all you were looking to maximize your shareholders' earnings or worth this year, you would say you would make probably the same amount of money if you axed the bottom half of your company and just operate with your top 10 to 12 people. And you would be right. The problem is we don't want 20 people. We want 40. And there's only one way to do that, growing your own. You got to invest in the people like that. So this is a very intentional thing that we're doing like that. But yeah, no, it's not something that goes over my head. Like, yes, absolutely. Most painting companies, if you got rid of a third of your employees, you'd probably do better and make more money, honestly.
Well, there was something, I don't remember who I was talking to, but in talking about hiring a production manager on, and was talking to somebody about it, and saying, I think we've got margin, we can do it. And they just said, stop right there, because we hired a production manager and our margin went up, our gross profit, because they're better at it. Which I'm really banking on that, because boy, I'm bad at it. So
listen, man, and this is, and again, if nothing else, I'm a collection of I try to do the best scientific experiments I can. And as far as I can tell, when I hired Holly, my first world-class production manager, I regained 60% of my week. 60% of my week automatically became just free from ordering paint, scheduling crews, minor logistics. It's life-changing, honestly. And I should have done it sooner. I think Holly came on when I had, somewhere between 9 and 13 painters, like that. So I have this track record of going way far past where I should, and then hiring overhead, and then it being such a big relief that I know it's a good decision. And I did the same. I mean, I was doing the sales for 25 people. It should have been about a $2.5 million company. Really, a salesperson should do about $1 million a year. I had estimator Andy this year. I regained another 40 to 50% of my week easily. So I pushed it so far that I was able to quantify the relief that came out of those things. And you, Adam, get a couple of those production managers and you're going to have a whole new life, man.
We're hoping for it. And, something too, people keep encouraging us is just saying that's the most stressful part of the business. You're dealing with all the issues. You're dealing with all the stress. Sales is fun. Marketing is interesting to me. Personally, I like doing the accounting and bookkeeping. I'll keep that for a while. It's fun.
Same.
And so the numbers are a blast. But hopefully putting that out, you become a more effective entrepreneur, you become a more effective salesperson, you become a more effective leader, you become a more effective recruiter, trainer, and your personal life too. Where by the end of this season, when we're running 8 jobs at a time, and we were running at the pace of a $700,000 company, this is just, it's draining on me also because I don't enjoy it either. So that's, and there's something to be said about that too, is do the parts you enjoy.
Agreed. Yeah. And eventually understand that, you may be like, even if you do enjoy something and you're the best at it, it is preventing you from doing something else if you have enough employees. So, if I was still out there doing estimates, there would be 0 time for recruiting. If I took a year off of recruiting, this business would start moving backwards. So you have to just be like honest with yourself about that stuff. Like, as the business owner, what are the things that only you can do? You would never ask your employees to go out there and recruit world-class people. It'd be great if they could bring along some friends and family and stuff. That's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is to take care of our clients and give them a world-class experience. That's enough, man. That's hard enough. So, So Adam, what else is on your hit list for today?
So one thing that I'm really, really interested in, and because I haven't had to deal with this quite yet, what we sort of have is the transfer from job sold to now the production manager or the crew lead or somebody is taking control of that, because we just found so often that you think you cover everything in the estimate. Boy, I asked every question I think I possibly could have, and I finally developed a checklist to use in an estimate, and so that was helpful. But these things pop up, or you get to the job site and they said, we agreed on, these doors, right? And I said, oh, I don't know. And I should go back and look at my notes. And I didn't delineate that exactly. The client thinks we're doing it, so I guess we're doing it. But I was just curious with the, how do you do that transfer, especially when you're not the one doing it? How do you make sure that you get all of those little notes? How do you make sure it's, hey, on the left bedroom ceiling, there's a mark that's not from us. Make sure to take a picture of that before, these crazy little one-offs. I don't know how you can systematize that.
Yeah. So what we found is, and we often have, and depending on your relationship with subcontractors, if you have a long-standing relationship with a subcontractor, you can replicate what we have. Our competitive advantage and our sneaky little trick with that is that our production managers and our employees are a family, and we work together every day. So when Justin says, do this, everybody knows exactly what it means. And Justin writes his jump sheets. Our jump sheets are our kind of work orders for him in a certain way where we know that things are just going to get done. And again, all our employees are trained in our standard operating procedures. So I sell a job to the SOP. They paint it to the SOP. 2 big parts of the handoff is, number 1, simple and concise. Like our SOPs, they should be 40 pages long. They are 1 page long each, because if you make them 2 pages long, people will completely disregard them. If you make them 1 page long, people might actually follow them. And so I would rather have something simple that maybe leaves out some of the smaller fine details and let other people train them in that and have compliance with that, then add in all those fine points and have no compliance. So our jump sheet, the thing that we hand off, it's color coded. It's simple. There are color coded things for each section of the job, and under that, there's only 2 things: paint color, paint color, paint color, paint color. So when they're looking for a job, it's very simple like that. Now, that to me is like systems and processes. Well, we have a great system. We color code it. We do this. If nobody's there to hold them accountable to it, it's complete garbage and doesn't mean a thing. So half of it is simple and concise form that you can give a painter that they get used to and they understand, what it means. The other one is the production managers actually holding them accountable to it. And that's the hard part. Like, we can't create an algorithm or a spreadsheet or something that will take care of this themselves. You can write down all the stuff you want. If you don't verify that somebody did it, it's still kind of worthless. So that's the hard part, Adam. And that's what the production managers are for.
Right. Yeah. And it's tricky because I just ran out of time to be that accountability piece. And then you do a couple of jobs together and you set up an expectation that they're gonna
Yes.
Now this is okay, and this is how we do things. So, and we have seen that with the guys that we've worked with more consistently. Like, they do understand more so what we're going at. And one of the best things was one of our guys we brought on who was new, and he's phenomenal. And I kept putting him on these kind of crazy jobs where spraying trim without rolling walls. So we didn't include the walls in there, the whole house. And and I'm like, yeah, you could just do that, right? He shows up and he says, you don't even know what this takes. But he went there and he's expressing concern. And I said, look, we'll take care of you. It's going to be okay. And we did, and lost some money on it, but he did all right. And so that's where it was kind of it is you grow in that. Even with the sub model, you do build relationships with these guys. So yeah, it is. And to your point, I've tried all sorts of different, this big packet, or okay, you need to do all these different things, and it's too much also, and you can't learn it and make it second nature if it's 40 pages long.
So, Adam, if I were to dabble in subcontracting, what would be the one piece of advice you would give me to smooth out my bumps?
Yeah, so advice I'm giving myself, which is be more selective in your hiring. It comes down to the people. And this is the one thing that in kind of the debate of subs versus employees, and at the end of the day, we're talking about people, and you have the same issues. It's a different tax model, and that's all that is. I get clients ask me about it sometimes, like, do you have an in-house crew, or do you have painters yourself, or do you sub it out? I said, well, we have subs that we use ourselves. So it's this is for the IRS, not for you. And I'm honest with them, and that's totally fine. And explain it. Say, these guys are really good painters. They're not necessarily in it to own a business. So we partner, and that's great. Be the same thing if we hired them. But I would say we have not done a good enough job sourcing and being patient with our guys. It is rare that we go and find someone in a pinch because we need something done. We kind of did that for a project that we were doing. We had some staining work that we needed done, which you might have remembered from the Facebook group that was okay. But and then we ended up saying, all right, guys, and I had to ask the Facebook group, say, who can do this for me? And Reed stepped up and did an amazing job. And so that was really helpful. But it comes down to everything we've been talking about for scaling. Because the benefit of subcontracting is you can scale very quickly if you can source people well. And we've used Craigslist a lot, but our best guys have not come from Craigslist. Some of them have, but we haven't explored Facebook. We haven't really explored Indeed. We haven't tried these other things that we might be able to do. One of the other thoughts I've had is, could we just start looking for experienced painters, journeyman painters, and who might be able to come in and say, hey, go on your own, but if you want to build a business, you could also do that here. That's something that I've thought about maybe dabbling in for next year, but that's the advice I'd give.
Nice, man. I appreciate that. So, well, Adam, I think we've gone over an hour and 15. I'll stay on as long as you want, but I want to respect your family time too. So is there any other questions that we should cover?
I think, well, I'm curious for you, just for my own personal curiosities. I mean, in terms of your business goals, if we can scale this thing, theoretically infinitely, it's just a matter of finding the people. At some point, I don't know. Most entrepreneurs I find aren't necessarily in it for the money. It's not money's not the only driving factor. Money is helpful. It's nice. It's good to be able to provide for our families. But really, I feel like most of us are in this for something else. We're in it for the love of the trade, or we're in it for the love of the people. And I'm just curious what is driving you, and what are your goals, and where do you want to be, down the road? if you had a magic wand and.
Yeah. So for me, I always think of right now, there's a lot of things that I have to explore. I don't know yet. But when you ask me at the end of all this, what would make me the most proud would be building a company where families get together, warm environment, everybody throws a hand in. It's a shared experience where everybody loves hanging out with everybody. Like when I look at my peer group, I see a lot of people who don't really like what they do all day. And what we do all day is we spend more time doing that than hanging out with our families, which is a tragedy. So if you have to spend 8 to 10 hours away from your family every day, I would say you should probably love it. And if I can provide jobs where everybody loves it, we continually make a good impression out in the community around us. Our families enjoy that. We're all grateful to have each other, and we do it in a really profitable way so that, again, we can give this group of people, this special group of people, things that they can't get anywhere else. That would make me very, very proud at the end of all this. Now, how many people that is, I don't know, but you could do a lot worse than maximizing what you have. So I found myself sort of doing the slinky game over the years where get 5 painters, make it profitable. Get 10 painters, make it profitable. And you're dragging that slinky up. Right now, we're at that 20 to 25. If you do this right, there's a huge reward at the end of it. I haven't got that yet, and we're still on our way towards it. So until I can prove that this works with us, I'm just going to keep hammering at this. When this is old hat to me, then we'll go to the next stage. But it's way more than money, Adam. And I think you probably think about that way more than I do. Money equals freedom. It gives you the opportunities to do a lot of things for a lot of other people, which is good. Running a good business it provides all that, but also you can provide a lot of this weird ancillary emotional sort of equity in what people do every day. And man, if somewhere between 20 and 40 people can love going to their job every day, that to me would be like, that's worth more than a lot of charity stuff you can do with the money that you would give. So, 40 years of creating happy, think of you could, at any point during a year of COVID, at some points, there were 20 to 25 families that relied on this company for a paycheck in a time where people are getting furloughed and laid off and all this other stuff. And it's like, this is not a small thing, So yeah, it's that. How about for you, Adam?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like you said, money is a tool for freedom. And so for us, the trade itself, we love the trade. But our end goal, ultimately, we love to do ministry full time. And my wife and I kind of dabbled with the idea of doing some ministry before we started the business. And a couple of things that didn't sit quite right with us. One was just for the life that we want for our kids and to raise them the way that we were, raised, just required more money than a ministry is going to provide. So kudos to people who sacrifice that aspect to serve the church and to serve the community in charitable ways. So many different amazing stories out there. And then the other thing about that was we didn't feel quite right combining the two. Starting something that was going to pay for our needs and also wanting this a lifestyle like we want. It just felt hard to mesh that together, doing ministry work. And so we felt the Apostle Paul in the Bible talks about how he worked day and night, as a tent maker so that he didn't burden any of his community. And so we kind of feel that way to say we have an opportunity and the support around us and the ability to go and create an income for ourselves and for others at the same time. If we have that ability, we should do that so that we don't have to be a burden on people to be able to serve the church and serve the Lord in the way that we desire to. So that's kind of our driving force. And it's a lot of fun. And I also think too, there's a place in ministry and in the church to take these business principles that we're talking about and apply them to more effectively and efficiently run things. So that's just kind of a little passion project in the back of my mind always is how can we do things a little bit better? So there's a lot of different things there, but for us, we'd like to provide we'd love to provide a company where people can be built up and experience the love of Jesus throughout the entire process from start to finish, whether they're employees, clients, from whatever background they come from. And we want to provide that. Yeah, Fernando just said that. That's exactly what we want to do, while also being somewhat removed from the day-to-day. We'd like to be more so pouring into our people from a different standpoint, helping to lead the vision, and to be provided an income that sustains our family while focus on some of these other ventures as well. So that's sort of our that's sort of where we're going and what we're trying to build. And we don't need too much. So
well, but what I like about that is guys like you and I are cursed and blessed with, I would imagine if you crack open your DISC profile, you see a very high utilitarian sort of motivator in there, and probably like mine. And, good. It's like we could both maybe accomplish the same thing by having one good sub crew or one employee. But if you're like, well, if one is good, 30 is even better. So let's do 30, but that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just, we have motors inside of us that are going to do a certain amount of things. If you had a ministry, it would be a big ministry. If I had a painting company, it will be a big painting company. It's just like, we're just naturally, we are the beavers. We are going to build dams wherever we go. And it doesn't really matter what we do, but that's what I like about you, Adam. So it's I like that you have in year one of what you're doing, you are way more mature, professional, and advanced than I was even a few years ago. And I'm so glad to know you. I do this better because I know people like you. So I want to appreciate you for taking the time to do this today.
Well, we appreciate that. I mean, we wouldn't be able to be anywhere without help from you guys. I mean, you guys have, you and Jason and Eric at Painting Business Pro, and Steve Burnett, double your business, and Brandon Lewis. I mean, it's just the dozens and dozens of people who have helped us. And it's nice at this point too. It's a gift to be able to provide some value. And for the couple of guys who are younger in the business than we are, which is hard. But there's a couple of them now who we've been able to help some people out and give a little bit of coaching up, saying, hey, we stole all of this from somebody else, but but here's what we know. Take it for what it's worth. It's been a gift. So it is a special community. You're happy to be a part of it. So that's good. I also too, I wanted to hit Steve Ravenscraft's question on marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's a really, I love that question. Marketing is really fun.
Hey, so, my biggest question is, how do you get these Sherwin-Williams jobs? I don't seem to get the referrals that maybe somebody should who spends that much money there. I would like to tap into some of those, huh?
We've gotten a couple. Those have been nice jobs for us. So no, I'd love any feedback on that too. How you can get more from Sherwin, but we so for our marketing, we use primarily lead services at this point, almost exclusively, which we finally have started ranking organically on Google. And part of that is just from being in a really good city and with one or two little things. So our website is not optimized, but it's clean cut and it does a good enough job. And we've gotten some decent Google reviews, so that's helpful too. So we've got a little bit there, but primarily ours is lead services. 2/3 of our leads come from that, and they convert pretty well. And I think, again, lead services can get a bad rep because you're paying for leads, and sometimes they're not very good leads. Sometimes they don't even know you're calling, and then it's kind of how do you navigate that? But at the end of the day, you're just trying to do the best you can. You can't convince somebody to want what you have if they don't want it. Like, they either need to paint or they don't. So that's kind of nice. But for us, there's a lot more that we can even do there. And you pay money for a lead, and even if it's $100, which is really high. I mean, we don't pay that much for any of our leads, but even if we did, if that job turns into a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 job, then all right, that's fine. So if 3,000 is the industry average for a job, and then you buy 3 leads, and if you can close 1/3 of them, even if they're $100 a lead, then you're still, that's not a lot of money comparatively. It's a 10% marketing budget, that's a decent marketing budget. Ours was around 4.5 this year, and we spent a lot. About 25% of our marketing budget was spent on a direct mail campaign that generated almost no business for us this year. So we about broke even with it, but but that's about it. So it was, so we had a 4.5% marketing budget with that. And so I would really, really recommend that.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's similar. Again, people, it's always interesting because I think whatever avenue you choose, if you go all in on it and play it the right way, you will get success. Because those lead services always get bad marks. Like, because if you play their game, if you pay for a lead and you act on them quickly and you follow up and you're aggressive with them, it can work too. Vice versa. Every bit of stuff that's not word of mouth or referral for me is direct mail. We have good result. We have done it. We have put in 3 years worth of research and we've done it. So I treat direct mail. I have just as much intentionality with that as you have with lead services, and magically you get a result from it, right?
I love walking through our neighborhood and seeing all the Nick Slavic postcards and Jason Paris. I walk through our neighborhood and I'm like, these guys are on my turf, but but it's beautiful though, because you're not. It's all.
It is so, I love that, man. Right? Especially in the gathering of Minnesota painters, because I operate in the Southwest Metro. It is a very small slice of this, and not many painters are south. I'm 45 minutes south here. I'm an hour removed from the Metro, and still gathering of Minnesota painters. They always send me pictures of their postcards when they get delivered to their house. I get a kick out of it. So. Yeah.
And there's plenty of fish in the sea. I mean, it is. I love the culture that you guys have built, even within the with the PCA and with the Gathering Minnesota Painters, because it's everybody help everybody, because we're all going to do better when we all do better. And I mean, that's just general life also, which if we've learned anything from COVID is like, guys, we're all in this together and let's all do it together. So, so I appreciate it a ton, Nick, and you got all my questions, and appreciate you for being a great person.
Well, likewise. Hey, listen, man, we're going to do this. So I think we're on a once every 11 to 12 months. We got to step that up a little bit. I think you and I are going to get together a little more often and do this stuff. So we'll probably look for the next 3 to 6 months. Let's do this again, man, because we scratched the surface. We didn't even get to any questions I wanted to ask you. So we're going to plumb the depths of this later on in the year. So thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Adam, you're the man for taking this much time out of your day. Thank you to the PCA, the Painting Contractors Association. Now, it's not hyperbole to say that the PCA is filled with dudes like Adam. That's what keeps me around there. The brightest minds, the most progressive people, the people who want more than to squeeze profits or to martyr themselves for a certain type of business. Everybody in the PCA believes we can do both. Money equals freedom, but also these businesses are little freedom machines to offer many, many things to those around us like that, including happiness and satisfaction. So check out the PCA. There's a link in this if you guys want to join. Otherwise, Adam, you're awesome. I really enjoy our time together doing this. We're going to do it again in 3 to 6 months.
Yep, we'll do it. Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the comments. We'll be on here answering questions after. And everybody, have a good weekend. It's family time for me. So we'll see you guys.